This day. It was really beautiful to see Martin Luther King's last speech, and also to have the choir and Tim and the band behind that. It really brings us into that moment, doesn't it? It is a kind of a special speech, you know. I don't know if you caught where he starts to blink his eyes right there. He says, "We have difficult days ahead, but I'm not worried now." You know, I just had the feeling he must have known something was coming, right? And I guess we all do. We all know something's coming. The question now is, how are we going to meet it? You know, there's plenty going on in the world that could frighten us, and could keep us from acting with courage, could make us want to go and hide in our room and close the door, or be aggressive with other people as a way of defending ourselves against them. There's a lot that's already happening, and much more that may happen. And we are now really at the question of how will we meet it. And in some ways, everything comes down to this whole idea that we need to transform ourselves through love, service, and our own personal development. And I think that Jane's made such a good case for service in the outer way that I don't need to make another statement about that. Everybody knows it's good for you and makes you feel wanted, and makes you feel like there's something that you do that matters to someone else, that gives you a chance to connect with people, a way to fulfill your own need of being a valuable human being. There's this statement that says, you know, we don't always find our answer to our prayers on our knees, but serving the Lord and other people. That's kind of interesting. So, you know that. You don't need to be told again. I want to talk about something else. Similar, and a way of serving in a way that you can do almost all the time. So now, in each of us, there are missings in our heart. There are things that never happened to us that we wish had happened to us, and many of them are now unconscious, but they run like a program within us, and they cause us to act and to react in ways that may or may not be all that helpful for us. And so, part of service to ourselves would be service to healing this aspect of ourselves. And over the last few weeks, I've been talking about this idea that when you can remember just to love yourself right then, no matter what you are doing or what's happening around you, to love what is happening. And it's from this book, Whatever Arises, Love That. And this idea is really potent, I think, if we will take it to heart. And that is that if you can just step back from whatever's happening far enough to love it, then you have a chance, given it the greatest chance to transform and to become something new. That if you hold on to the resistance or the feeling or the anger, or somehow deny that it is happening, and that's where all your energy goes, then you kind of block the natural flow of what might unfold out of this. But if you can say, I love you to yourself, and invoke within yourself at least the idea that you could love what's happening. And maybe you can't love what's happening, so you love yourself for not being able to love what's happening. But you continually bathe the moment in this energetic feeling of love. Then you have made the conditions, you have served the moment enough that the moment can be transformed. And if we will do this over and over and try and fill it out in every part of our lives, then we will begin to trust something really deep and profound. We will trust that the world, the universe, God, all of creation is working in our favor. That even though it may feel painful or unpleasant, it's working in our favor. And we'll have the opportunity, if we have doubted it, that the divine loves us beyond our understanding. But we can hold that realization of divine love and the sense that we live in a beautiful and trustworthy universe at bay by refusing to let this moment be loved. And to say, I would love this if only it were differently. Though the world is not okay as it is, my life is not as okay as it is, my relationship with the divine is not all right. It's not all right because I absolutely refuse to have this experience right now, or at least to appreciate it. So those are the contrast, the resistance or the loving. And when we do that, I think one of the things that happens is that we set up the conditions to be able to see others differently. Now, to help in the process of loving yourself, it's probably good to learn this phrase, I love you, directed toward yourself. But even more specifically, it might be worth taking some time to figure out what it is that you really feel unloved about. What is the gap, that scar, what is the missing for you in particular right now? And it may change over time. It may unfold and become more elaborate or simpler or whatever. It may be about different subjects. But in the moment, what is it you're missing? And for most of us now, what's missing is now going to be down pretty far underneath the surface. It's going to be underneath the surface because we have not been willing to live with the pain and the suffering of that missing all the time. So we built up essentially a personality on top of that, some of which is defensive and some of which is offensive. And to get to a healing place, we need to go back and feel or know what's missing. So let's say you happen to be one of those people whose father was not so generous, at least not in words. And your whole life, what you wanted your father to say was, that was a job well done, and I love you just as you are, even if you didn't do it. And so you've been waiting for that. You've been waiting now almost a whole lifetime, and now you're thinking, well, maybe not this lifetime, but maybe next lifetime I can get it. Or, here's my solution, tell yourself that right now. You did a great job on that. I love you just as you are. You don't even need to do anything to win my love. Tell yourself that, if that happens to be your pattern that you need healed. Tell yourself that repeatedly. In the moment in which you're beginning to feel upset that someone's not appreciating you. In the moment when you feel like you're never enough. In the moment in which your anger has arisen because someone did not say thank you. Tell yourself that. I love you. You're sufficient. I've always loved you. Even when you weren't doing anything, it didn't matter to me. Now that you've done great things, I'm so happy for you. Tell yourself that. Be the parent that you missed. Let yourself be the recipient of the words you have longed to hear. If you can't get there yet, just start with I love you. And then wait for something to arise that really bothers you, and then you go, what's underneath that? What is down beneath that's bugged me so much that I would get mad in this situation? Because if you were completely, totally without need on the inside, things would happen and it wouldn't matter so much to you, right? You certainly would be proportional in your anger or your upset. It would only be that size, not bigger, right? Now, if we got this down, so imagine if we got this down to where we actually had the sense of wholeness that we have longed for, and sometimes it has gone almost unspoken because it was completely forgotten about us. We didn't even believe it was possible. So we just gave up on it. It's just hanging out there. And so we have built this elaborate mechanism over it so that we don't feel that, this look at me. Some of us are extroverted. Check me out. I'm so cool. Right underneath it going, gee, I hope they like me. And then on the other people who are introverted going, I know they don't like me. I'm not going. And so all this personality build-up. Great, some of it's actually pretty functional, but let's get down underneath it, get to the point where we have the healing that we have longed for, even if we've forgotten to long for it. And then we have this experience by giving the words and the feeling state of love to ourselves and the words that answer the call of our desires as children. We give it to ourselves, and then we are prepared to go out into the world and be a different being out there. So you know the road rage guy. I'm glad none of you are. So the road rage guy is out there, and do you think he takes it personally when you cut him off? And all he wants to do is run up on your bumper or run up beside you and give you the finger or whatever it is. It's just, he's just got to express it like you knew he was there in the first place, right? Like, do you know what I mean? It was just an accident. It was just something you did. But it's triggered him being ignored or being pushed around or whatever. You can see it's just a reaction. It's not really about you. And now that both your windows are rolled down, you have a chance to say something nice to him or to exaggerate it, right? And so you say to the guy, hey, I'm really sorry, I didn't see you. You look like a really cool guy. I guess it was really my fault. And in that moment, you have done service to this person. They have a chance to let it go, to be at peace, perhaps even to begin the healing of a deeper layer within themselves. So you have that. You have this crowd, this sea of humanity, living quiet lives of desperation all around you. And they're all waiting for your service, so to speak, your kindness, your understanding, your ability to stand in their fire and not react. And so we have, as we take care of ourselves, the beginnings of taking care of them. And then if we practice taking care of them, it only amplifies what we feel ourselves. So if that person has always had a father who didn't love them and didn't praise them and didn't accept them as they were and never thought they did enough, and you say something along those lines to them, who hears it? Maybe that person does, but certainly you hear it again. You feel it. It goes deeper. And we both grow out of this, both the giver and the receiver. Our job really is not to be perfect. Our job is just to love. What a relief. I know you're some perfectionists in here, right? It's got to be perfect or it's terrible. Maybe. Some forms of brain surgery, I think, qualify for that. Probably not making a bed, washing dishes. This is our problem. We need to heal what's underneath us, and then we need to be healers in the world. And the world needs it now. And the world needs it among people, but the world needs it among the physical structures of the world itself also. And there's a lot on the line right now. I don't know. The world is heating up. I think it's going to be 60 today in January, which in and of itself would not mean that much, but with the poles warming and ice melting and life unraveling and storms, and it's time for us to be proactive and to give our healing to that which has been longing for us, to recognize that we are enough is part of the reason we don't recognize we are enough, is part of the reason we have destroyed so much of this planet, is that we don't think we're enough, but we can prove that we're enough if we overdo it. It's time for us to be really conscious of what we do. I was reading this story. There was a school, high school, where they had special needs kids and general population kids. They put them together so they would be like a buddy system, and they would go to lunch together. And this teenager was writing about his friend who was a special needs kid, and the special needs kid was telling this, going on and on about Batman. I know it was Spider-Man, but he often talked about all the superheroes, and so he was going on about Spider-Man. And the guy was listening, and there was an ant that came up and crawled across his napkin, and he squished it. And the special needs kid said, "Why'd you do that?" Of course, he didn't have a great answer. He says, "You know, the ant is part of a colony, and that ant was out looking for food and needed to take food back to the colony for everybody to eat." And the kid writing the story said, "I never squished another ant again." It's like when we recognize that we are all the same, from person to person, but down to the bottom of the food chain. We're all the same. We all want to be happy. We all want to be peaceful. We want to be filled with loving kindness, and we want to experience loving kindness. That's who we are. That's what all sentient beings are up to. Very simple. This commitment to being love in that moment will keep us from making a lot of mistakes. Will help us just to be the human being we chose to be or would love to be. So it means taking care of yourself by giving yourself the words that you've always wanted to hear, doing the same for somebody else, and then treating the world from a place of the heart rather than a place of the hurt. So, when Martin Luther King and the whole nonviolent movement was going along, they gave us a great example of how to do this. So, I don't know if you know that ahimsa is the word in Sanskrit, I think, which basically means nonviolence, but it means much more than that. It means essentially do no harm, or to support life, in essence. And so the way the nonviolent movement worked so well in India and in South Africa and in the United States was that the people who were protesting or doing civil disobedience or whatever did not return anger and hostility and violence when it was directed toward them. Instead, they sent back love. And one of the things that happens when that happens is that the person doing the violence or spitting on someone realizes at some point they are at fault and not the other. There is a humbling of the righteousness when you are confronted with love when you have given violence to someone else. And that can be in the form of words, or it can be in the form of physical activity, or even thoughts, but that it is reflected back to you. And that releases both parties from the chain reaction experience. You hit, I hit, you spit, I spit. It becomes a place where healing can happen. And it is difficult often to sit in the fire of someone's anger and frustration and not react. But if we wish to change the world, that's how we do it. You don't react. Instead, you know to love instead. You love, you say kind things to them, and yet you speak the truth as honestly as you possibly can, because the truth forces to the surface that which is in discord. And it may not go easily if you speak the truth, but in that dis-ease of the moment comes a chance for healing. And it is met by meeting it with love and kindness. That's a tall order. And the world is better because some people learned how to do it. Our calling is to do it in our own lives, to meet your spouse, your neighbor, the road rage kid with love and respect. Hang in there. Take it and return love. Take it because you have decided that you are here to heal and not to hurt. That you are beyond reaction, not because you're perfect, but because you're willing to be loved in every moment and not just one more automaton reacting in the normal fashion. This is why we remember Martin Luther King on this day, so that at least we can honor someone who's done it, and at most we can emulate it. Let us do that. Let us pray. Let us feel just what's going on. We feel what's happening within us at this moment, and then we do our best to love it, whatever that reaction, action, or feeling is. Let us just love what is arising. We love what is arising. And if we can't love it, we love ourselves that we can't love it. Perhaps you've failed terribly at loving what is. I have.